What is up, guys? It's your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and today this will be my official hero review of Iron Man. So Iron Man is one of my favorite heroes in Marvel Champions, and he's one of the OG first original 5 heroes that came in the core set. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the categories that we have for him, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on him. So first, we're gonna take a look at Iron Man's Thorling. So for Thorling, I think the most valuable categories are the stat line, control, and the type of cards that the hero has. So for Iron Man's stat line, I do think that the Thor stat line is a lot more valuable than the attack stat line and the defense stat line. This is something that I talked about in my Bishop hero review. But having 2 Thor is very good, and anything lower like 1 Thor is going to be not as good. It's just Thorling is so useful early game, and to have that initial like Thorling stat line on your hero to just come out and be able to thwart away a side scheme or something like that, and the attack and defense isn't going to be as valuable super duper early on. Yeah, so I think that is very valuable, and Iron Man has that stat line. So I definitely give him that check for the stat line because he has 2 Thor, which is very good. For his control, what I mean by control is going to be ways to mitigate threat, right? So that could be a way to confuse a villain. Iron Man does not have any sort of confuse in his kit, and he has no other way to kind of prevent threat from going on the main scheme or on side scheme or anything like that. So he does not have that in his kit, so I did not give him a check point for that. In terms of cards, what cards does Iron Man have in his kit that help him thwart or remove threat? So Iron Man is actually a little bit of a unique hero. He doesn't have any thwart events in his hero kit. So let's go ahead and pull out his cards here. So he has like the Repulsor Blast, which is a 1 cost event. It's an attack event, hero action attack. His Supersonic Punch is a 2 cost event. It's also another attack event with the hero action attack right here. So in Iron Man's entire kit, he doesn't actually have any sort of thwart event. His only way to remove threat is his 1 cost upgrade, the Mark V helmet. So this is a 1 cost upgrade, so it stays on the field, and as a hero action, it is a thwart activation. You can exhaust the helmet to remove 1 threat from a scheme, and then from each scheme instead if you have the aerial trait. So if Iron Man uses his rocket boots here, where hero action you can exhaust the boots, spend a mental resource, and then gain aerial trait until the end of the phase. If you use that, and then you exhaust the Mark V helmet, the thwart removes 1 threat from every single scheme in play, which can be very, very valuable, especially in multiplayer, but even in solo to be able to ping off a threat from the side scheme and the main scheme. And then if you don't have the arrow trait, it's just 1 threat from a scheme. So it's not the worst thing. This is still a great card because it's a 1 cost upgrade, so it's very, very cheap to get down, and Iron Man wants those upgrades because if you look at his hero card here, he gets +1 hand size for each tech upgrade you control, and the Mark V helmet is a tech upgrade card. So I think that that's a very, very good card for Iron Man. But it's not really going to be enough to help him thwart, right? It's really good, it helps him add on, but if you combine that with his 2 thwart for his stat line, it's still not good enough. But the reason that I gave him this check mark here is kind of like the feel of the hero. Does he have cards in his kit that make his thwarting feel really, really good? And he definitely does. And the major card that I think really makes his thwarting amazing is going to be another upgrade here. It's a 2 cost upgrade, his arc reactor. Hero action, exhaust the arc reactor and ready up Iron Man. So this isn't necessarily a thwarting card, right? It's a very versatile card, but to me, I value that and I attribute that to his thwarting, right? Because it can be anything. So if Iron Man thwarts for 2 and he uses arc reactor, he can ready back up, thwart again for 2, and he can still use his helmet and then thwart for another 1. So that can be a total of 5 threat off of 1 scheme, or 5 threat off 1 scheme and then 1 threat off multiple other schemes. So because of that, whenever you're actually playing Iron Man, he feels like he's able to thwart a lot with just those 2 cards. So I think because of that, I am going to give him the check mark here for the thwarting cards, even if he doesn't necessarily have any thwarting events. So overall, I gave him a 2 out of 3 for his thwarting, which I think is very, very good. Next, let's look at Iron Man's attacks here. So we're looking at his burst damage. So that means how much damage can he get to make a big burst to like push a villain without the villain like retaliating and taking down Iron Man before he's able to finish the villain off. And then how many instances of damage does he have, right? Can he ping off Tufts? Piercing would categorize in this category too. And then does he have ways to take care of like mid-sized minions? And then the cost, like how cost efficient are those attacks, right? Are they really, really expensive to play, or can Iron Man easily get off his attacks? And Iron Man, for me, he has all 3 categories checked off. So let's first take a look at his burst. So Iron Man has, in my opinion, very, very good burst, especially with the his main bursting card to me is going to be the Supersonic Punch here. It's a 2 cost event. Hero action attack, do 4 damage to enemy, 8 damage instead if you have the aerial trait. So basically, this is kind of an end game card, and you really only want to be playing this whenever you're fully built out. But being able to pay 2 to do 8 damage, that's insane. The normal cost for it that we look for is 3 for 8 with a Spider-Man swing web kick. That kind of established the base of what's cheap for a lot of damage. And 2 for 8, I mean, 8's very easy to get, especially after Iron Man's built out, because you have a lot of resource generators, and you get that aerial trait with his rocket boots pretty easily. So I think because of this and his 2 copies of it, I would actually prefer him to have 3, but just having 2 is pretty good because if you play both of them in one turn, that's going to be 16 damage. And then he also has his his rocket boots to do damage as well. So he has a lot of ways, or not his rocket boots, I mean his power gauntlets here, which can also do damage as well, and they do 2 damage each if you have that aerial trait. So that can be already at 20 damage with only these 2 attack events. So definitely, I think for burst damage, Iron Man definitely has it down. Another card that helps him add to his burst is going to be his Repulsor Blast. It's a 1-cost event. Hero action attack. Do 1 damage to an enemy and discard the top 5 cards of your deck. For each printed energy resources card this way, do 2 additional damage to the enemy. So if you discard top 5 cards of your deck and they're all 5 energy resources, then that would be 11 damage, right? Because 5 times 2 plus the 1. You might have a double energy resource in there, so that could make it like 13 damage. But the thing I find with this is pretty restrictive because oftentimes I'm discarding cards and I can't make all my deck energy resources. I can make the majority of it, but I don't find that super duper consistent milling down the deck. That's just not my favorite way to play with him, even though I do like to build him with a lot of energy resources with that. I do like the Supersonic Punch a lot more than the Repulsor Blast. But even without, like I play many games with Iron Man where I don't even play the Repulsor Blast once, and I think he still definitely has that damage without it. That being said, I mean, the Repulsor Blast is definitely one of the funnest cards in his kit. I definitely like playing it and getting like a lot of damage off with it more than the Supersonic Punch. So definitely very, very cool and thematic card, just not as practical as I would like. So yeah, I mean, that can add to his burst, but usually that card doesn't do as much big damage as I would like. For his instances of damage, I mean, he has so many instances of damage. I mean, Iron Man might be like one of the top heroes with having multiple instances. And I think this is very important because if you have an enemy with tough, let's just take a look at Iron Man's cards. So if you have an enemy that has tough, Iron Man can easily just exhaust his power gauntlet right here. Right here, action attack, exhaust the power gauntlets, deal 1 damage to the enemy, and then 2 if you have the arrow trait. This is a 2-cost upgrade, so it just stays on the field. So every single turn after you get this card in the field, you don't have to worry about spending any extra resources. All you gotta do is just exhaust every single turn. You ping off 1 damage wherever you want, and 2 if you have the arrow trait. So I mean, if you have them both down, Iron Man is just pinging off, and I mean, I think these are like great ways to get rid of tough, great ways to just do little chunks of damage. There's a lot of minions in play, and you can't allocate all the damage to one big minion or to the villain. So he has a lot of minion control when he gets these power gauntlets down. And then, I mean, he just has tons of attack events, right? So even if you don't have the supersonic punches, if you do have an early game, they're still great to play, right? If you can't get the arrow trait, 2 for 4 damage is still a great way to just take out a minion, right? Like a low mid-sized minion, or 1 for however many damage. This could be, I mean, it'll probably be at least 3 damage because you're probably going to discard at least one of your resource, right? So you can still do a little bit of damage if you have a really nasty minion that you need to get rid of right away. So I think Iron Man has, I mean, definitely one of the more ways to do little instances of damage. And then I don't think tough really bothers Iron Man at all, even though he doesn't have piercing, because of those multiple ways to do instances of damage. And then in terms of his cost efficiency, I mean, Iron Man has some of the cheapest cost events, right? Like the Supersonic Punch, 2 for 4 isn't the best, but 2 for 8 is crazy good. And then 1 for however many. I mean, 1 is always going to be a cheap card to play. And then for his Power Gauntlets, I mean, 2 costs is a little bit hefty, like initially, but to have them on the field, it's very, very cheap because you don't have to pay anything for them again, like every single turn, just pinging off 1 damage. So I think he has very, very cheap ways to do damage. So for attack, Iron Man definitely has 3 out of 3. He is one of the, he can attack in all sorts of ways. Even though he doesn't have piercing, it doesn't matter because he has so many ways to get around stuff that piercing would help you with. All right, so for Iron Man's next category, his survivability, I gave him a 2 out of 3 for this. So for the alter ego and hero side of survivability, I think that survivability is kind of like what you need to survive, right? I think a lot of people might be shocked that I gave Iron Man 2 out of 3. I think a lot of people might think that Iron Man is a little bit less of a hero that has a lot of survivability, but I do think that he is a pretty tanky hero, but initially he isn't, and that's kind of what I want to get into more about the alter ego and hero side. in my opinion, it's very important to have survivability on your card, on the alter ego card, or on the hero card itself, because more than the others, like similar to Thor, right? Where if you have that initially, you don't need to draw and get lucky to have that survivability. And Iron Man, he definitely needs to draw into his cards to build a survivability up, because if you don't get the cards, he doesn't have anything on his hero side or alter ego side, right? So let's take a look at that really quick. So on his alter ego, he has 3 recovery, which is just the average, right? It's not terrible or anything, but it's not good. And then for his action futurist, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 card to your hand, and discard others. That doesn't do anything for his survivability. He has a hand size of 6 and 9 hit points. So 9 hit points is a little bit under the curve. What we're looking for is usually going to be 10 is going to be the average. So he's a little bit squishy with 9 hit points, and then 3 recovery is just average. On his hero side, he has 2 thwart, 1 attack, and 1 defense, right? So if he needs to defend for his life, that 1 defense is not really going to do that much. It's not the best, and he also has that 9 hit points again. And his hero ability also has nothing to do with giving him survivability. So I think that if you don't get lucky with Iron Man and you draw a bunch of cards that have nothing to do with giving him health, he can easily die very, very early on. So that does detract a point for survivability. So I did not give him a check mark for his alter ego / hero card. However, Iron Man does have cards in his kit that add to his survivability. So the main card with that is going to be his Mark 5 armor here. It's a 3 cost upgrade, which is a little bit expensive, but you get plus 6 hit points, which is definitely worth the 3 cost. In addition to this, almost all of his cards, he has a lot of other cards, not almost all of them, but his rocket boots here also give him plus 1 hit point, and they're a 1 cost upgrade, right? So even though they might not be super duper good like on their own, right, just give him the arrow trait, they have synergy with a lot of his kit, because he wants that arrow trait for a lot of his other cards, right, like his power gauntlets, his Mark 5 helmet, his supersonic punch that we looked at earlier. So he has a lot of reasons to want to get the arrow trait, and you get that plus 1 hand size for each tech upgrade that you control. So getting these tech upgrades for Iron Man, his rocket boots getting that plus 1 hit point, his Mark 5 armor, there's 2 reasons to do it, right? You get the hit point, you can get aerial trait, and you get a tech upgrade to increase your hand size. So there's multiple reasons for Iron Man to want to get these cards down. So they're very good cards for him to play, and then they do add to his survivability, right? Whenever he gets fully built out with both rocket boots, he gets plus 2 hit points, right? 1 for each one. He gets plus 6 from here, so then he'll have a total of plus 8, and an 8 plus 9 is going to be 17 total hit points. So I mean, Iron Man gets all the way up to having 17 hit points, which I think is very, very good. So if you can get him set up, I mean, he's definitely a lot more tanky than a lot of other heroes. And then lastly, for his healing, once again, Iron Man actually doesn't have any way to heal other than his recovery, but it's kind of what I kind of rate these categories are as is not just like the actual cards that the hero has, but how does the hero feel? Does Iron Man feel like a hero that's easily able to heal back up? Can he take a lot of damage and then easily heal that up? And playing Iron Man, I definitely think that he can. Like, Iron Man is not a hero that drops down to like 2 health and you just feel like, oh crap, like I gotta spend so many turns to try to recover my health and get back up. He feels like he can easily heal back up. And the big reason for that is it's gonna be his arc reactor again. So this is really giving him a lot of points in my opinion, because it changed the way that he kind of plays, right? That 2 cost upgrade where you can exhaust it and ready Iron Man, you can only use it in hero form, which I'll go into a little bit more later. But I think it's so powerful because Iron Man, if he wanted to, he can thwart, control the board a little bit, then use the arc reactor, right, to ready back up in hero form, and he can flip down to alter ego and still recover for 3. Then on that next turn, whenever you start the turn in alter ego, he can immediately recover again for 3, and then flip over to hero form, and then ready back up with the arc reactor, and then start doing something else, right? He can start controlling the board, he can attack or thwart if he needs to, right? So I think that having that arc reactor, not just be a ready, right? I think a readying card is one thing, because if it's like an event you might not have in your hand, but having a 2 cost upgrade that you can use anytime to ready up is very, very valuable. But one thing I do want to know is that it is only a hero action, so you won't be able to recover twice in his alter ego, right? If you recover, you can't use the arc react, or if you recover, exhaust recover, you can't use the arc reactor to ready back up in your alter ego. It's a hero action only. So that is gonna block out the recovery a little bit, but even with that, he can recover every single turn if he's flipping down at least once per turn, because that ready can always ready him up back to his alter ego. So when I'm playing Iron Man, I'm feeling like even if I drop down low, I can easily get my hit points back up high by using his base recovery. And yeah, I love playing the recovery card with him, which I'm blanking on the name of the card right now, but it's the one with Daredevil where your alter ego gets +2 recovery. So or downtime is the name of the card. Yeah. So I mean, I think that Iron Man, even though he doesn't have any specific healing card, he feels like a hero that can easily heal back up because of that arc reactor. So I definitely give him that point for that. And for his survivability, I mean, it's not the best, but he's definitely he definitely has more survivability than a lot of other heroes in my opinion. So I do give him a 2 out of 3 for that category. Okay, so next let's take a look at Iron Man's economy. And I mean, I think Iron Man is a very high economy hero, which fits his theme, right? I mean, it's Tony Stark. Tony Stark is rich, so Iron Man feels rich whenever you're playing him. So first, let's take a look at his alter ego and hero side. So same thing as survivability. I think it's very important to actually have that innate economy on your hero card or your alter ego card, because if you don't draw into your resource generators, you're already starting with something good, and you don't actually need to draw into something to get your economy going, I guess. So let's take a look at his alter ego and his hero side again. So we have here Tony Stark. We looked at it earlier. Futurist is an action. You can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add one of them to your hand, and discard the others. So basically, he has a hand size of 6, which is the average, right? So hand size of 6 is not bad. It's good. But if you use Futurist, you're effectively just drawing a card, right? I mean, it looks a little bit complicated. You're looking at top 3 cards, but you can get one to your hand. So it's pretty much drawing a card every single turn. So Iron Man, and it's even better than that because you get to choose which card of the top 3 cards that you want to add to your hand. So basically, if you're in your alter ego, Iron Man pretty much has a hand size of 7. Yeah, that's very, very good and definitely adds to his economy. On his hero side here, he has a hand size of 1, which is terrible, right? Hand size of 1 is probably the worst hand size in the entire game for a hero card. But his ability here is you get +1 hand size for each tech upgrade you control to a max hand size of 7. So, I mean, I don't know any Iron Man game that I built or that I played unless I lose, right? Because I don't get fully built, I just like die before. But if you're playing an Iron Man game that you win, you definitely get fully built out. And when you're fully built out with Iron Man, you get that hand size of 7. And I mean, most heroes have a hand size of 5. That's what we're looking for. I think hand size of 5 in hero form is considered good. If you have a hand size of 6, that's like freaking amazing. I don't think any hero actually has a hand size of 6. Iron Man can get there, but he can actually get to a hand size of 7. So you are really rewarded for building Iron Man out, because that hand size of 7 is insane, and just having that built into his kit. I mean, you obviously won't start with that. You start with the alter ego stuff, but when you get all that set up, it doesn't matter if you don't have any resource generators down. You have that hand size of 7 just from getting out all of your tech upgrades, right? Your arc reactor, your Mark 5 helmet, Mark 5 armor, the gauntlets, the rocket boots, right? If you get all that stuff down, you're going to have the hand size of 7, which feels incredible, even if you don't have any resource generators. If you don't have Avengers Mission down, no Queen care, it doesn't matter because he already has all of that. Or because he already has a high economy. Next, we're going to take a look at his cards here. Does Iron Man have cards in his kit that help him add to his economy? And he definitely does, and it's one of my favorite cards in his kit. Pepper Potts. She's a 3 cost support, so she's pretty expensive. And then you can use her as a resource, exhaust Pepper Potts, generate the resource of the top card in your discard pile. So it's not a hero resource or alter ego resource, so you use every single time, right? So if you're in alter ego form, you can use it. If you're in hero form, you can use it. If it's during the villain's phase, you can use this card whenever you need to generate a resource to play a card. You can't play a hero action in the villain phase, but you can play like a response or anything like that, or interrupt if you have that. So Pepper Potts is a very, very good card. 3 for 1 for a resource generator that generates 1. It's already not terrible, but she gets to generate the resources of the top card in your discard pile. So in Marvel Champs, you're not allowed to manipulate and change the cards in your discard pile, but usually what you want to do is use a double resource for whatever card you want to play, and then the double resource is on top of your discard pile, and then you use Pepper Potts to generate the double resource again, which is crazy bonkers. I think being able to generate a double, that means that you're kind of using a double 2 times in 1 turn. Super duper good. And I mean, you can use like a card and a double to pay for Pepper Potts. Just make sure when you put in your discard pile, you put the double last. Then Pepper Potts can immediately generate a double again on the first turn that she's played, right? So she can kind of pay for herself, even though she's a little bit expensive to get down. So yeah, I think Pepper Potts is one of the coolest resource generators in the game. Definitely a very, very good card that helps Iron Man have a lot of economy. And then finally, the cost of his cards. It's kind of just the overall cost of all of his cards. And we talked about earlier with his attacks too. But I mean, the overall cost of his cards is very, very cheap. I think that the most expensive card is going to be, War Machine. He's not really an ally that I play a lot with Iron Man, but Iron Man can easily get him down late game. Early game, it could be hard, but Iron Man's economy, I mean, there's definitely a lot of games that I have played him just because there's nothing else in my hand, especially late game. And then Pepper Potts and Mark 5 armor are going to be the other expensive cards. But like I said earlier, Pepper Potts just pays for itself. Mark 5 armor is definitely worth it, getting +6 hit points. And then his other cards are all pretty cheap at here. So I think Iron Man has very, very well costed cards. So for his economy, I definitely give him a 3 out of 3. I think it's a very, very rich hero. And then lastly, we have the versatility. So how does Iron Man play? Does he have any cancels? And how what does he do in different aspects? So the two most important things to me are going to be his in-game versatility and the cancels. I don't really think the aspects is super important because you can just play him in the really good aspect. That being said, Iron Man he is very good in multiple aspects. Let's first take a look at the in-game stuff. I kind of jumped the gun there. So how versatile is Iron Man in-game, right? What's his play style? Can he change up his play style and do different things? And in my opinion, I think every hero can play uniquely and play differently. But at the highest level, like against the most difficult villains, against like let's say expert Magneto or expert Venom Goblin or like an expert Ronin, I think that Iron Man can defeat them, but he must play a certain type of way to defeat them. He can't kind of change the way that he plays, right? The way that you play Iron Man is that you have to build his suit. So getting down his tech upgrades for his hand size here, right? Because if you don't get those tech upgrades down, he has a hand size of 1, which is just not playable, right? So whenever you're playing Iron Man, you have to get out the arc reactor, you have to get out the Mark 5 helmet, Mark 5 armor, the rocket boots, the power gauntlets. You have to get these cards out. So he's very zoned in and trying to play out these upgrades, and he can do different ways to play the upgrades, right? I'm not saying he has to stay in Alter Ego. He can flip tier 4 immediately and then try to get them down and defend with allies, or he can just stay in Alter Ego and let the villain scheme and try to get these things out. But at the end of the day, he has to get these upgrades down. I think that is very, very restrictive on how Iron Man plays, especially on a lot of villains that have a lot of attack pressure or scheme pressure, right? You're talking about like let's say a Magneto, right? Magneto can easily swing 2 times in the first turn on expert mode because he usually face on a counter card. He hits super duper hard. He can get an attack activation, and then where he gets 2 boost cards, right? I think it's called the Master of Magnetism. Magneto has 3 main schemes, but they all have really, really low threat thresholds, right? It's 5 per player, 6 per player, and 7 per player. So one scheme is gonna pop the main, like the first whatever main scheme stage, almost every single time. So if he schemes 3 times, I mean, the game is probably over unless you have a way to mitigate that with your aspect cards. If you're playing Iron Man, I mean. So because of that, I think that that's the most restrictive thing on Iron Man, and that's kind of where I'm gonna detract the most points for him. Is that he kind of has to get those upgrades out. So against like a villain that you don't want to play upgrades against, like let's say like the Collector, right? Because he has so many ways to make you discard upgrades that are in play, and there's just other ways that Iron Man can be countered. He just has to play this type of way, and I think that because of that, his in-game versatility isn't quite there. I mean, that's not to say he's not good. I think he's still super fun to play, and I've heard a lot of people say that they get bored of him because they're always building out. I personally love building out Iron Man. I have yet to get bored with it, but I do think that it is restrictive because he isn't able to rush. He isn't able to do other things. He has to build out that suit first before he's able to do anything. So I definitely do not give him a point for that. In terms of cancels, that just kind of means does Iron Man have any ways to cancel encounter cards, right? I think that that's a very valuable thing, and it adds a lot to your versatility. Can you flip down in the villain phase or be in hero form in villain phase, but the villain gets like a very nasty encounter card? Is there a way for you to cancel, right? Can you cancel a Shadow of the Past? Can you cancel another activation? And Iron Man in his hero kit, he has no way to cancel that. So the only way is to play like a certain aspect and use like an aspect card or something like that for him to cancel those cards. So he does not get a point for that. And in terms of the aspects, I think that Iron Man is very versatile. I think that he plays very well, especially right now at the current state of the game. He can play in protection, right? Just building in on all those tech upgrades because protection has so many of those tech upgrades to get his hand size up very, very quickly. And protection can help him from dying early game. He can also play very well in leadership because a lot of the ally upgrades are tech upgrades. So if you get a lot of those down, they count towards that +1 hand size for Iron Man. And my favorite way to play Iron Man is definitely in Justice because I just love staying in your alter ego, taking your time building your suit, letting the villain scheme, and then trying to mitigate that with the Justice cards, right? And then just turn over the hero form and just take the villain down, right? I think that's a very thematic and fun way to play Iron Man. I think he's very strong that way. In aggression, I don't think Iron Man is the best aggression hero just because he already has a lot of great damage in his hero kit and he doesn't really need any more. He just needs other ways to mitigate the other stuff, right? Like the survivability and especially the versatility. And I think the aggression aspect is probably the least versatile aspect in providing something else for the hero, right? Like leadership can provide allies and like ways to manipulate those allies and get them into play in different types of ways. Protection can help provide your survivability and just let you play in a more aggressive way. And justice allows you to be in your alter ego a little bit more. Aggression kind of just adds more damage, which doesn't really help him gain any versatility there. So I don't think he's the best in aggression, but I think the other three aspects work very, very well with Iron Man. So that's kind of my hero review here. And let's take a look at his overall rankings, at least in my opinion. And one thing I do want to say is that this in no way is definitive. I don't think that my opinion is like the end all be all. It's just kind of my perspective playing Iron Man and how I feel after my playthroughs with him. And I think that Iron Man is a solid A tier hero. I think he's definitely no lower than that. But I can't put him S tier. Uh, most like the biggest reason being because of the versatility there, right? I just feel like having to build out that suit means that if you get super duper unlucky early game, you won't have that survivability, right? Because he doesn't have that survivability point for his hero and alter ego side. So you don't get the cards that you need. He can easily just get crushed. He just really needs something to get him going. And if you're able to compensate that through his aspect cards, I think he can easily get going and then be very, very strong. I think Iron Man is definitely a strong hero that can take down all the content in Marvel Champions. I think that he is able to defeat all the expert villains. I plays on my channel against like expert Magneto, expert Venom Goblin with Iron Man. So I think that he can definitely do it. But he has to work very, very meticulously. And I think that it's not as easy as a lot of other heroes. You have to really know what the villain is doing and when they're going to scheme and try to mitigate that. And you have to be a little bit lucky too, because you got to draw into those cards early on. Because if you just draw a dud hand, the Iron Man can't get set up initially, and then the villain can just pop off and scheme everything out. So yeah, for my hero review, Iron Man, A tier hero, super solid, still one of my favorite heroes in the game, even though he did come in the core box. But he's missing, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes here that I think he's missing. And a Bishop, who I had as S tier, I think he only missed 2 boxes. I think probably somewhere around, if you miss 4 or more boxes, that'll probably keep a hero out from being S tier. And if you're like 3 or less boxes, I think that's what I'll consider an S tier hero. Once again, I don't know if this system is going to be any good at all. We'll kind of see as I start to review more heroes, but I mean that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. And I think Iron Man, yeah, I think he's just a little bit shy. He has everything else, especially late game. It's just that getting started for him can be a little bit difficult. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys agreed or disagree. Let me know what hero you guys want to see me do next. And yeah, just give me your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next one.